Imagine being handed a mission so uncomfortable, so inconvenient, so completely outside anything you would ever choose for yourself, that your first instinct is to run in the exact opposite direction of where you're supposed to go. That is Jonah's opening scene. And yes, this plan was terrible from the very beginning. Jonah isn't confused. There is no mystery, no ambiguity, no, maybe I heard it wrong. The order is painfully clear. Go to Nineveh. A massive, chaotic, morally complicated city with people Jonah has zero interest in dealing with. He doesn't like the idea. He doesn't like the assignment. He doesn't even like the people. If there were a suggestion box for missions he'd prefer, Nineveh would be the last name he'd ever write down. It's the ancient equivalent of receiving an email from your boss on a Sunday afternoon. Long, demanding, definitely going to ruin your plans, and pretending you never saw it. The message is there. The responsibility is real, but emotionally. You tap mark as unread and go live your life. Jonah has that moment, that micro pause, that tiny space where he could inhale deeply, accept the task and say, "Fine, I'll go." But he doesn't. He thinks for about 2 seconds, maybe less, and decides he's not doing this. No explanations, no internal debate, just a pure, instinctive, absolutely not. And then comes the part that makes Jonah, Jonah. He doesn't just avoid the mission, he runs. But he doesn't run to somewhere neutral, like a quiet village or a cave to gather courage. He chooses the opposite direction. If Nineveh is east, then west becomes the only direction that feels emotionally safe. It's as if he looks at the map, shrugs and says, "Perfect, I'll go literally anywhere else." Geography clearly was not his strong suit. There is no strategy here, no brilliant escape route, no master plan. Just one impulsive decision: get as far away from the responsibility as possible, and hope distance solves what courage refuses to face. Jonah builds the entire plan on one belief: if he moves fast enough, maybe the mission won't follow him. But running from something internal never works, and Jonah is about to learn that in the most dramatic way possible. Because the moment he turns away from Nineveh, the moment he chooses west over east, the moment he pretends the message never came, he unknowingly sets off a chain of events that will become the worst escape plan ever recorded. Jonah doesn't just run, he buys a ticket. That's how committed he is to not doing what he was told. He heads straight down to the port, not with confidence, not with a plan, but with the single goal of getting as far as possible from Nineveh. He walks past sailors, merchants, noise, crates, ropes, all with that tense determination of someone pretending nothing is wrong while everything inside him is screaming. He spots the first ship headed to Tarshish, the farthest place in the opposite direction, and that's all he needs. No research, no reasoning. He doesn't ask about the weather, the route, or the dangers. He pays the fare, steps onto the ship, and offers zero explanations. To anyone watching, he looks like a man traveling light. But emotionally, he's carrying a storm inside him. His whole plan can be summarized in 2 words: disappear completely. It's the ancient version of trying to escape the Wi-Fi by turning off only your phone. The problem isn't solved, you've just stopped looking at it. Once on board, Jonah goes straight to the very bottom of the ship, the darkest, quietest place he can find. And while everyone else prepares for departure, he lies down and goes to sleep. Not a soft, peaceful sleep, more like an exhausted, "I can't think about this anymore" shutdown. He's convinced that distance plus denial equals safety. But up on deck, that illusion collapses quickly. A storm hits the ship with absurd force. Waves slam against the hull, ropes snap, barrels roll, the sky goes dark. The wind sounds like it's tearing the world apart. Meanwhile, the crew is losing their minds. These are experienced sailors, men who have survived dozens of storms. But this one feels different. This one feels personal. Jonah, however, stays asleep through all of it. Sleeping while your own life is falling apart, an advanced skill. While Jonah rests, the sailors pray to every god they've ever heard of. They shout, bargain, panic, search for explanations, and start looking for the one person not helping. The mysterious passenger who boarded quietly, said nothing, and disappeared into the lower deck. They rush down and find Jonah, calm, sleeping, detached from the chaos above. And at that moment, the suspicion becomes unavoidable. Something about this man doesn't fit. Something about his silence feels too heavy. And the plan Jonah thought would solve everything? It's about to get a lot worse. Jonah wakes up and sees the result of his brilliant escape plan. Absolute, uncontrollable panic. The storm is tearing the ship apart, sailors are screaming over the wind, barrels are rolling across the deck, and the entire crew is convinced the world is ending. This is the moment Jonah realizes that outrunning a mission doesn't mean outrunning the consequences. With the ship moments from breaking, Jonah finally admits what no one wanted to hear. He is the reason this storm exists. It isn't bad luck, it isn't nature, it isn't a random disaster. It is him. Not his luggage, not his choices, not his behavior. Him entirely. And then he says the most extreme line anyone could offer in the middle of a life or death crisis. Throw me into the sea. Extreme? Yes. Logical? Not remotely. It's the ancient version of blaming your entire national ID for an overdue bill. The proportions simply don't match. But the sailors, desperate and out of options, finally agree. They lift Jonah, hesitate for a brief second, because who throws a man into a storm and feels good about it? And then they do it. They toss him into the raging water, and instantly, everything changes. The storm stops, the wind dies, the waves settle, the sea becomes unnervingly calm. The ship straightens itself and, without looking back, continues its journey as if nothing ever happened. Life goes on for everyone aboard, except Jonah. He sinks into the dark water, the cold rushing around him, the sound of the ship fading into the distance. This is the moment where Jonah understands that his escape plan didn't just fail, it collapsed in spectacular fashion. End of the escape plan. Beginning of the survival plan. But then something even stranger happens. A giant fish rises from the depths, opens its mouth, and swallows Jonah whole. No warning. No chance to protest. 1 second he's drowning, the next he's inside something alive. Suddenly everything is dark, damp, and claustrophobic. Walls of muscle pressing around him, the smell of salt and stomach acid thick in the air. It's like staying in the worst Airbnb imaginable. The kind with 0 windows, 0 space, and absolutely no cancellation policy. And it's inside this unlikely, impossible, deeply uncomfortable place that Jonah finally stops running long enough to think. 3 days. 3 full days thinking about his own mistake. Literally from the inside. That is Jonah's new reality. No sunlight, no silence, no space. Only the slow, rhythmic pressure of a giant creature that swallowed him whole, and the heavy awareness that running from his mission didn't take him anywhere better. Inside that suffocating darkness, Jonah finally does what he refused to do before. He prays. Not a dramatic speech, not a triumphant declaration. Just a tired, honest acknowledgement that fleeing east when he was told to go west or vice versa wasn't the best strategy. He promises he'll obey. He admits the obvious. Pretending he could disappear wasn't bravery. It was fear wearing a disguise. Deep thoughts tend to appear in unexpected locations. And this is the worst location imaginable. It's the ancient equivalent of reflecting on your life choices in the worst Uber ride of your existence. Stuck in the back seat, questioning every decision that got you there, wishing you had just taken the trip you were supposed to take in the first place. Time passes slowly. The water shifts around the creature's body. Jonah waits, thinks, regrets, accepts. And after 3 long days of internal processing, emotional and literal, something changes. The fish begins to rise. Jonah feels the pressure move upward, as if the entire world is tilting beneath him. Then suddenly, daylight. The fish opens its mouth and spits Jonah out onto the shore with absolutely no ceremony, no dramatic music, no triumphant moment. Just a wet, exhausted man landing face first in the sand, while a giant fish swims away as if nothing unusual happened. The whole scene is completely anticlimactic, more awkward than inspirational. He's back to where he started, back on solid ground. Back with the same mission he tried to escape. Only now he's covered in saltwater, seaweed, and the unmistakable smell of fish. A reminder that every shortcut comes with a cost. Return to the starting point, smelling like a walking seafood market. Jonah sits there for a moment, breathing heavily, realizing there's nothing left to hide behind. No more boats to board, no more directions to run, no more excuses to invent. Now, there is no escape. The story of Jonah isn't about a fish. It never really was. It's about someone trying to escape something internal, a responsibility he didn't choose, a fear he didn't name, a truth he hoped would stay quiet if he pretended not to hear it. Everything that happens to him, from the storm to the darkness in the fish's belly, is just the external echo of an internal refusal. When you lay out the timeline, the pattern becomes painfully clear. First, a mission he didn't want. Then, a geographical escape in the farthest possible direction. A storm that broke the illusion of control. A giant fish that swallowed him whole. And finally, a second chance he never expected. All those moments look dramatic, but underneath them, Jonah is living something universal. The human instinct to run from what scares us. Because people haven't changed that much. We still avoid conversations that make our chest tighten. We dodge responsibilities that feel heavier than they should. We delay decisions that could reshape our lives. We convince ourselves that discomfort fades if we ignore it long enough. We all know what it's like to run from something internal, some fear, some truth, some weight we don't want to carry. And just like Jonah, we eventually discover that distance doesn't solve what's happening inside. You can cross seas, change routines, stay busy, switch environments, or drown yourself in distractions. But eventually, life circles back to what you avoided. You meet it again, sometimes quietly, sometimes like a storm. It's like trying to silence notifications that keep appearing on your screen. You swipe them away, hide them, or mute them, but they return until you finally deal with the thing that triggered them. Ignoring is not resolving, running is not healing. Jonah's escape wasn't a failure because the route was wrong. It failed because the logic behind it was flawed. He thought distance could replace courage. He thought movement could erase responsibility. He thought silence could make the mission disappear. But the real problem wasn't the place he ran from. It was the fear of facing what he needed to do. Inside the fish, in that dark, claustrophobic pause, he finally realized that avoidance doesn't protect you. It traps you. And facing what terrifies you is often the only path forward. He stepped onto the shore with a second chance, not because he outran the mission, but because he finally understood it. So now that Jonah has finished running, which story should we simplify next? Elijah, Samson, or Noah?